Hey everybody, welcome back to the Badgerland Birding Podcast, bringing you birding news and stories from the Badger State and beyond. Today we're going to be talking about a cool experience we had, which was birding at the Grand Canyon, which I think was more fun than I even expected it to be. What did you think, Rye?
Yeah, so this was a number of years ago, and we made videos about it, but we haven't really revisited the topic too much since then. And it's one of those places where people told me that if you see the Grand Canyon, you're very mesmerized and amazed the first time you see it. But if you keep seeing it over and over, the experience becomes less and less fantastic. And I did not find that to be the case. I felt like every time we got a new look at the Grand Canyon, I was just standing there like, wow, that's incredible. And then being able to be in that environment and then see cool bird species too really made the experience even that much better.
Yeah, it was definitely mesmerizing, and it immediately became a thing that I would say everyone should put on their bucket list. Because I feel like you experience like a higher plane seeing the Grand Canyon. Like I am one of the people that have seen the Grand Canyon. And when you're just looking over it, it makes you feel, I don't want to use mesmerized again because we've been saying that, but it makes you feel a sense of wonder. It's a very
Hmm.
wondrous experience. And the pictures don't do it justice because they're all flat. So you don't really get the full effect, but it is a thing if you go there, I think you should spend a lot of your day there just hanging out because there's like a little Grand Canyon village. You can get food, you can get some stuff to drink. There's a bunch of animals to see. There's a lot of trails to walk. You got to be careful because it is really hot, so make sure you're drinking a lot of water.
Yeah, we're kind of going to go through, I think, our entire experience there because we were there for, I would say, 1.25 days. So we got there later on the first day just to take a look at everything. And of course, our target species number one was the California Condor, which the Grand Canyon is a great place to see those. Particularly, actually, I think the North Rim is probably if you want a ringer California Condor going to the Navajo Bridge, I believe it is. Seems like that's an excellent place to see them. We were on the South Rim. So we weren't really guaranteed a condor, but the first day that we went there, we got looks at the Grand Canyon, went to the village, and to the point that you said already, Derek, I like that there's this village right there because there is a lot of touristy stuff right along the edge of the Grand Canyon. There's lodges, there's places to get food. So it's a good mix of natural beauty and natural wonder, and then you still have all the amenities if you want of more civilization and things like that. It's not a place where you're just remote out there in the middle of nowhere. There is stuff built up right by the Grand Canyon. So it's kind of cool because you can go get an ice cream and then go sit and look at the Grand Canyon, which is neat. But the first day we were there, what was the first species we saw? Do you remember?
I think it was either,
I remember.
well, I remember one of the first ones we got on video was the black-throated gray
I think
warbler.
that was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
we
was really
got
neat.
there and it's a lot of conifer, of course. So you have these trails you can walk on. Some are more wild than others. One we were on was pretty paved and man-made, and we heard some black-throated gray warblers. And then I think our first lifer was it the Woodhouse's scrub jay, I think? Juniper
Yeah,
titmouse or
I think
Woodhouse's scrub jay, I
so. I
think.
think Woodhouse is scrub jay. We did see the titmice. I remember we were kind of chasing down mountain chickadee too, because we would hear them, but then we wouldn't see them.
Yeah, this was back before we had been to the Southwest and the West as much as we have been. So a lot of these things that definitely we saw more as we went along with our birding journey. This was the first time. We'd seen black-throated gray warbler before, but that was still cool because it's a Western warbler species. Juniper titmouse and Woodhouse's scrub jay definitely were new for us that first day. But
Yeah.
then we went, I think it would be west. We traveled west, I want to say. And that was where we actually got our first look at a California condor. And the best look actually that I've ever had was the first day because it was number 23, which was just sitting out on this ledge. You could not ask for a better view of a condor from above.
Well, okay. So it was the kind of thing where we checked out that one area where we saw that stuff that we were talking about. And then we were driving, and I think someone in the car, we were with some friends of ours, they were like, I think I saw like a condor overhead. And we're like, could that be? Like, is it possible they would just like fly over the village? And
I
then
think they said they saw something flying up there that looked suspicious,
yeah, and
basically.
so then we stopped and we went out to the lookout, and that one was just sitting there. It was like, oh my gosh, it's California condor. That was incredible, and we had planned, we planned like one day or a couple days of being at the canyon. So then we were like, yeah, we got it already, but then we ended up spending the whole next day there too, pretty much because it's just such a cool place to be.
Yeah, but seeing that bird and you could get to a place where you were almost looking straight down at it, it was just so cool to be able to see a California condor sitting there right in front of us. And that was like the least amount of trouble that I think a bird ever gave us because we didn't even expect to see it that day. And then boom, right there, California condor, and got a lot of time viewing it. It did eventually take off and fly down farther into the canyon and land on a tree, but that was just incredible. And then the next day was where the real adventure began because I think after that we left for the hotel that day, and then the next day we decided to get there at sunrise to see if we could spot these birds in flight and get some other
Well,
views
how
of
could you
them.
not want to do sunrise? I remember it was brutal waking up that early, but how could you not want to do sunrise at the Grand Canyon? I
It was
mean, that's such an
beautiful.
iconic thing to do, I feel like. And it was pretty chilly in the mornings. You're just like sitting there with coffee, like, I'm ready to see the sunrise over the Grand
Yeah.
Canyon.
And seeing it over the Grand Canyon, it seems to be bringing back flashbacks for me of how breathtaking it was because it is quite expansive and you just look out over it and there's all this area.
Yeah, if you're feeling dragged down by the bureaucracy and work and DMV type of world, go see the Grand Canyon or go get an iconic view and that'll make you feel alive again.
Yeah, so in the video, what's nice about this is everything we're talking about, we have videos that you can watch if you want to relive that experience, which I'm probably going to do after we're done here. I think I'm going to put that video on and relive it. We have, I think, two of them. One is where we were birding the South Rim, I think the first day where we saw the juniper titmice, black-throated gray warbler, and woodhouse scrub jay. And then we have one about finding the condors with, and I structured it in an interesting way because I actually start on day two and then go back to day one because day two, it was all about trying to see them in flight because that seemed like another thing that would be iconic would be to see these condors flying because they're so massive. Getting to see their wingspan all the way seemed like it would be cool. But we started out at daybreak before the sun was up, and there was some birds already out. I remember violet green swallow was in a nest cavity. That was cool. We got to see that. Bush tits were there too. What else do we have early?
We had a
Brewer's
really
blackbirds.
nice Western tanager view.
We did.
I think that
And
was
what
my
was
life for
cool,
Western tanager.
I think you're right, actually. I think
Yeah,
it
that
was.
was cool.
What was cool is you could just walk the rim of the Grand Canyon. So you would just go to another lookout and there could be some birds there. And then you go to another lookout and there's something different. There's stuff on both sides. There's stuff over the edge of the canyon. And then there's also stuff in the more human habitation too. So I think we got a video of a bruised blackbird eating a Cheeto or something as well. So very cool to just walk up and down that rim of the canyon.
Yeah, and just the West in general. Like I think the last couple of years we had done trips out west, and this year we haven't gone out there yet. We will soon, but I kind of miss it. It's such a different vibe than the East. Like it feels so much more open and expansive, and there's these beautiful vistas and plateaus and scenery, and I kind of miss just being out in that Western environment. So if you're an Eastern person and you've never been out there, definitely take a trip out west and just feel the different vibes and go to the national parks and see all the beautiful landscapes that it has to offer.
This could just be because of perception, but I do find that it feels more rugged and more free out there. When you're just looking at everything, it seems that there's fewer people, fewer civilizations, more space, more unexplored area, because there is a large part of the country there where there's very thin population compared to the rest. I mean, if you look at Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, those aren't places that are typically heavily populated, so it just feels like there's more space. But what was really interesting was the Bright Angel Trail on the
Mm.
South Rim.
It's a dangerous trail,
It is. And the reason it's dangerous, they're very adamant that you have to be very careful on this trail because
and people
going,
have died on that
yes,
trail
every
because
year I
they,
think people die on that
yeah,
trail.
were unprepared or something happened where they miscalculated or something like that.
Yes, because the thing about it is that it's really easy to go down. It's really hard to come back up.
It goes down into the canyon. So
Yep.
it's a long trail that you can kind of zigzag your way down. There's also, do they take, was it donkeys or horses they take on it
Yeah,
too?
burrows, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, and we hiked down it just a little. We were careful not to go too far, but that was probably like our best views of Virginia's warbler, like anywhere in the West.
Yeah, they were all over the place down
Yeah,
there
that
for
was
some
awesome.
reason. But
And
before
black-headed
even that,
grosbeak.
it's cool because like you said, it does just go down into the canyon. And I remember speaking of I don't want to say speaking of deaths, but there were people that were kind of messing around on rocks there that I don't think they were supposed to be on even. And I was really concerned that someone was going to slip and fall deep into the canyon. I think there's also a base camp kind of in the bottom part of the canyon on the Bright Angel Trail. So a lot of people are going down there, camping there, and then continuing on because it does eventually take you to the river
which
that's
would
in the
be really
middle.
cool to see.
Right, it would be really cool. It would be something I would be interested in doing at some point, but we obviously didn't have enough time that day. But like you said, Virginia's warblers all over the place, great views, black-headed grosbeak. What else was down there? Was there Woodhouse's scrub jays? And then that is where we got our first view of the California condors in flight. Well, one of them in flight.
I guess in soaring, soaring over the canyon more so. Because the first day we had that one that just flew down, but it was neat to see them over the canyon itself and
It
just
just
how
had its
long the
wings
wings
extended
are.
and looked like
Yeah.
a massive airplane, just like this, like no flapping even, just gliding.
Yeah, super iconic. So it says at least three hikers died on the Bright Angel Trail in 2023. As of July 9th, 2024, at least four have died this year. So yeah, you really have to think about what you're doing out there.
And it was hard to get back up. We didn't even go down that far, but coming up was way more severe. And there were some people that looked like they were struggling on their way up, and you definitely have to be careful not to go too far. And also, if you don't have any water and you do that,
Yeah,
you'd
you
have
need to
to
be
go all the way to
prepared.
base camp or something, I think, to find water.
It's not something you just want to do sporadically and just,
No,
it'll be fine kind of deal.
no,
It
absolutely
reminds me,
not. You
there's
do
that
find it.
one beach in Michigan where it looks like it's a short trip down, but actually it takes like forever to climb up it. You know what I'm talking about?
I've never heard of that.
It's like a sand thing. Let me
What? How
let
does
me
that
let
even
me
work?
see. You've never heard of this?
I've never heard of this beach. I don't know why you've heard of this beach. Well, anyways, you're looking that up. I think at about the point where we saw the Condor was when we decided to go back up. And the Condor, it just slowly floated along until it actually turned behind part of the Grand Canyon. So we got that view and then we started climbing back up. But we were pretty much in this for the whole day. So our friends decided that they were going to go do something else because they didn't really want to hike it or see any more condors. So it was just us out there, and we had all the time until we were going to get picked up again, which was basically a full day. And we went back up kind of the way we came. And before that, we actually saw a zone-tailed hawk, which I totally forgot about, which was cool. Because something I forgot is we were just looking at everything that was soaring. Turkey vultures, any kind of hawk, because we were just trying to pick out a condor somehow. And it's hard because some of it's going to be over the canyon and some of it is actually in the canyon. So you look down and see the tops of birds flying. So that can be even more challenging because you have to try to pick it out amongst the ground, which is a lot harder than looking up and seeing the shape in the sky.
Yeah, and it was really cool to find that zone-tailed hawk too, because it looked very similar to a turkey vulture, but it was the kind of thing where then you zoom in and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a zone-tailed hawk. So that
That's
was a
still the
nice
only
find.
zone-tail hawk I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, isn't it?
It is.
And then so we just spent the whole day because our friends dropped us off there. So we were just spending the whole day walking around the canyon, looking at birds. And I do think it's cool when you're seeing all these cool birds and getting excited, and the normal passerby has no idea what's going on as far as like, why are you all excited? What are you looking at? Like, what's the tiny gray bird you're finding? So it's
Yeah.
like you're like, this is a gem, like this is a prime birding place. People just like, oh, it's the Grand Canyon. Like I do think it's cool to kind of be focused on something and getting excited about something that other people aren't.
People there definitely did have ideas that the condors existed, though. So it was one of those species that they still wanted to see just because it was a cool species. Sort of similar to if you go to Yellowstone and you want to see a bear or you want to see a moose or something. It was one of those species along with bighorn sheep and some others that people were aware of. Kind of also like at Haystack Rock with the tufted puffins, people know that they're there. So it's a cool animal for them to see, even if they're not bird people. So that was kind of interesting because there were a lot of people that were just tourists that would say, "Oh yeah, I've been keeping an eye out for the condors and haven't seen one or did see one or something." So it wasn't just bird people. But I do think we were the only exclusively bird people there. We were the only people that were really birders, I think. So I don't know if it's heavily birded usually, or if it's just such a high tourist population that people don't go there to bird, or what the deal is with it.
Yeah, and then so we were trying to find new species, and we heard that call. We heard, song and call that we were like, man, that sounds really familiar. What is it? And we tracked it down, and it was a Townsend solitaire, but it looked massive for some reason. It didn't look like your standard Townsend solitaire that we normally see. So we just stared at it for like 5 minutes, like, what is that thing? And it just didn't click. I don't know if it's because it wasn't in the spot we normally see them, or if it was just a happened to be a massive one. But it's kind of funny to see birds in different places, and it has like a different aura about it.
Yeah, I think we went through kind of a stretch then too, where we were starting to get tired and just walking the rim in the canyon and not really finding anything too new. The standard mountain chickadees there. Um, I remember we were on the lookout for Stellar's jay because there was one that got reported there, and that was a species that would have been new for us. So we were trying to find Stellar's jays, but we didn't exactly know where to look. And that was when we infamously stopped at one of the places there to get food, and I got a hummus wrap and ate the hummus wrap, then went to this area where there was a different kind of forest. I think it might have been pinyon forest. It was a different kind of conifer. And we found mountain bluebirds there, and we think that's where the Stellar's jay was. So it was unique because there are different habitats there. Even though it's the Grand Canyon, you kind of think of it as being uniform. There were different types of trees there, which would lend better habitat to different birds. We also found the Grace's warbler there too, which was really cool.
Yeah, that was a beautiful one. We had just started exploring that habitat. Wish we could have spent a longer time in there because it was different than the rest of the area. What was it that we were looking for? Possible Clark's Nutcracker, was it? Or Stellar's Jay?
Stellar's Jay, I think,
Yeah,
was the big
Stellar's
one.
Jay.
I think we were on the lookout for Clark's Nutcracker. I think people report them there in winter time more. So it's obviously a different set of species there in the winter than in the summer. But we went back to this place where our friends were going to pick us up, and then lo and behold, we look up and there's a condor soaring right above us, the last minute condor sighting. And it was a really cool way to conclude that. We were both pretty tired, but it was at around that time that I started feeling kind of ill. So we were in the car and my stomach didn't feel so good. And it turns out that there's this thing that people get called Grand Canyon sickness, where last I checked, they don't actually know why people get it, but it's basically a stomach bug that causes stomach flu-like symptoms. And so I don't know if it was something in the wrap that I ate or if it was just exhaustion and dehydration. Even though we did a pretty good job drinking water, we had some big jugs along with us, but I don't know if it was that or if it was Grand Canyon sickness, but I got so sick the rest of the night. It knocked me out for like 2 days after that. And I remember the rest of the trip just was not the same because we went to the painted desert. I don't think I even got out of the car.
No,
And
that
then
was
we,
that was one where I was like, we should make something about the painted desert. You're like, I don't want to do anything. So I
I
filmed
didn't
it
even want to
very
move.
quickly as we kind of went through.
That was a rough night. And people are always like, oh, I guess that ruined the Grand Canyon for you. And I'm like, no, it didn't. That was one of my favorite days ever.
Yeah. Yeah, you do say that. Yeah, it was a cool experience. This is the thing I'm talking about. It took a while to actually find, but it's called Sleeping Bear Dunes.
Okay.
So basically it's this really steep bluff in Michigan. So you can kind of see like in this picture how much it just like slopes down. So it looks like, oh, I'm
Sure.
just gonna go down and back. But it's actually an optical illusion and it takes way longer to go down and climb up. So this is kind of like a Reddit post I found about it. So this guy was saying takes me about 50 to 60 minutes to climb up that dune. Or I guess a woman. My super athlete husband easily makes it up in half an hour. Totally depends on your fitness level. Stay hydrated. The dune is no joke. If you just want to swim, North Bar Lake is wonderful. So it's this kind of
Okay.
thing where people see it like, I'll just go down and back, and then it's way more than they bargained for.
So is it easy to go down it?
I would assume it's easier than coming back up. You can
Somebody
imagine
says did
climbing a
it
big
yesterday in
sand dune.
13 minutes.
That's surprising. Only reason I was that fast because I was racing my brothers and been training for a few weeks for some cross country races. Pushed myself
Wait.
too hard and was
Yeah.
coughing up blood at the top. 0 of 10 would not recommend.
Wow.
I'd budget 45-minute-ish for the average person. So yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Huh.
So there you go. I've seen like posts about it.
We could
People
go there.
online saying, be careful doing this, but
Is it
that's
in
kind of
the
what it reminded me
UP
of.
or is it in
I
mainland
think it's
Michigan?
in mainland Michigan, but let me see.
I was hoping it was in the UP. We could go to the UP to do that. But yeah, that's kind of Bright Angel Trail-esque.
Looks like it is on an island off mainland Michigan.
Hmm.
I don't
Where
even
did you
know.
hear about it from? Why do
It
you
was
know
on it
about
was
it?
on like a thing spreading around in short form media. Yeah, it's like here. So I don't know how you even get to that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But hey, yeah, Sleeping Bear Dunes.
Wait, can you go back to that once? Just
Yeah.
that image. So, I mean, it looks really close to Wisconsin if you take a boat. If you go from like
I mean, I
Washington
think really
Island,
close is an understatement.
I mean, relatively close. Because I can see Washington Island there.
Just do a Lake Michigan pelagic, just come around here, and then
Yeah,
just
see, you
bam,
probably get
right
some
there.
Jaegers, probably get some sea ducks. That's pretty cool. That might be a Midwest bucket list item. Climb back up the dune.
Sleeping Bear Dunes. I feel like if you're prepared for it and you have time, it's probably not, not too bad. But if you just kind of, if it's the thing you don't really plan for and you just go, it could be real
Well,
rough.
apparently you cough up blood if you try to do it in 13
13
minutes.
minutes, don't do that.
Yeah, Bright Angel Trail. So if you do the dune or the Bright Angel Trail, prepare yourself. Don't take it lightly. It's no joke. It's one of those things. There's so many things in life where people try to overly prepare you for it. I think both of those things sound like you should take warning of and make the proper precautions.
Yeah. So final thoughts on the Grand Canyon. I would 100% recommend if you've never been, you got to go at some point in your life. Can't live your whole life and not see the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the birds there are pretty cool too. I think the condors obviously are the big draw. If you're someone from the eastern United States, there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to either be rare in the east or that you just won't get in the east any time of the year. So, a lot to look for there. And I would recommend as a birder, you have to go birding there too. Not just see it as a citizen of the US, but go bird it and find some of those cool species out there.
Yeah, can't say what it's really like in winter, but I'm sure it's breathtaking in winter as well.
Would you go back? Do you want to go back at some point
I
again?
would 100% go back. I feel like
Yeah.
I would want to go back with people that have never been and like
Yeah.
be with them for their first experience seeing the Grand Canyon. That'd be really cool.
I think it would have to be with people that also wanted to go birding though, because I'd want to go birding again.
Yeah, yeah,
I kind of want to check out the Navajo Bridge and get a different view of the condors.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much to the Grand Canyon too. There's also like a documentary I watched about people hiking the rim of the Grand Canyon, and it was talking about like the different developments that they're doing around there and things they want to build and all that. So I hope it doesn't get too touristy. Like it's definitely a tourist spot, but I hope it doesn't become too crowded all the time. It's kind of
I'm
it had a
assuming
nice feeling of it being kind of nestled into the wilderness there.
since it's so big, I'm assuming there must be some portions of it where there's just nothing around it too, right? Like
I
just
would imagine,
desert and
yeah. I
then
mean, you can see
canyon
so
starts.
far and there's just nothing built up there.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. The condors too. I mean, we can talk about condors for a long time because that's a really interesting conservation story, the condor, because they were a big problem for them was poisoning because of lead bullets that were used to kill animals that they would then scavenge. And so when they started not using lead so much to kill animals, that helped. But they've done a ton of work to get the condors rehabilitated again. And I think we should probably do a video at some point about the condors resurgence, like we did with the whooping crane. But I would say the condor, the whooping crane, the Kirtland's warbler are all species that in the US have somehow made a good recovery. You can add bald eagle and sandhill crane to that too. It's a pretty cool conservation story.
Yeah, a big success and shout out to everybody involved with the conservation project and all of that because it got to a point where there were none left in the wild, right? They took them all in
I
basically and
don't actually
started
know
breeding
for
them.
sure. That sounds right,
I
but I'd
thought
have to double
so.
check.
Let's
But I
see.
know that the number 23 one that I think we saw was a pretty notable one in the story of their rehabilitation because that one was, I think, one that had a lot of chicks. There's probably someone out there that knows the entire story off the top of their head, but I'm gonna have to do some research.
Well, here we go. So it says 1967, California Condor was listed as endangered by the federal government under the Endangered Species Preservation Act of 1966. The 1996 recovery plan established goals for downlisting the species from endangered to threatened. These included establishing two wild, geographically distinct, self-sustaining populations, each with 150 birds and at least 15 breeding pairs. By 1982, only 22 condors survived in the wild. In an effort to avoid extinction of the species, the service partners began to capture the remaining wild condors. 5 years later, all remaining wild condors were in captivity, and a
So you're
captive
right.
breeding program to save the species was underway. Today, the service and its public and private partners have grown the total wild free-flying condor population to more than 300. In 2004, the recovery program reached an important milestone with the first successful chick hatched in the wild. In 2008, another major milestone was reached when more condors were flying free in the wild than in captivity for the first time since the program began. I would call that a massive success.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, that wasn't that long ago either. That was only 20 years, 2004, where the first one was born in the wild. So that's pretty crazy. Did you see it said historical range used to go from the west all the way to Florida?
Yeah, no.
It was one of the paragraphs that you missed actually or skipped over.
Let's go back.
It was that small one.
Historically ranged from California to Florida and western Canada to northern Mexico.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow. Look at the.
Historical range. That does
I'm
not look like it
assuming
goes.
it probably like this.
That's interesting. What's up with the spot in the
I
northeast?
don't know. Well, some of these maps look very different for what the historic range was.
It seems like it's indicating that it didn't go all the way to Florida, but
But
rather
it
that there was
was
almost a population in Florida. What's that one on the left?
this one.
Yeah.
Is it talking about the Holocene? I don't think
Well,
that
that
that's the
doesn't
right
help at
one.
all. That's what I expected the range map to look like.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I don't
California
know.
Condor database. Yeah, okay, hard to say.
That article can't be wrong, can it?
It might be. It's hard to say.
Hmm.
So we saw it was Condor number 23, you said, right?
Yep. I think that's the one that they called the Michael Jordan of condors.
Was it actually that one, number
I think it
23?
was because I think it's technically number like 023 or something. I
Because
think
if
that
it
was the
is that
one.
one, then it says number 23 and his mate were the first released condors to successfully raise a chick on their own.
I think that's the one.
Yet today, number 23 sits alone. 2 years ago, his mates come to lead poisoning. And this was 2011.
I think that would be the same one. I don't think they would give another one number 23. But now I'm sad, so thank you.
Hey, you need to know the truth, right? Let's take a look at our video, see if it
Our
matches up.
friends Chris and Colette went to see the Condors too at some point, and they were saying that one of the female Condors, they had to capture her, and I think she was injured or sick or something, and they had to rehabilitate her. And then while she was in captivity, another female was trying to hone in on the male that was the partner of that condor. So then apparently there was a little skirmish or something after that condor got re-released. So there's condor drama out there.
There's a lot of Condor
Interpersonal
drama.
condor drama. There it is.
Can you see it?
I can see it.
Number 23.
What a beaut. What a view too.
Yeah. That's like such a cool place for them to perch on too.
Yeah, it is. It was perfect too. You could just totally picture a condor there. It was just jutting out over the canyon. I mean, you can see the bottom of the canyon in the background.
Is the video playing for you?
I do not see the video playing. It's just
Oh,
on a screen. but it is a screen of the Condor.
Well,
Oh,
you
now
can.
it's on you.
Oh, okay. Here, people can. You can check out the video. I would encourage people to watch just to see what it's like.
I'm
I think
literally gonna go watch it after we're done
it'll
here.
really make you want to go check out the Grand Canyon.
Now I'm just mesmerized again. Oh, look at that beast in flight.
What a hero, number 23.
Indeed. The Michael Jordan of Condors.
Condor Jordan. But yeah, really cool. If you haven't, if the Grand Canyon is not on your list, put it on your list right now. Go check it out. Go bird it. Go have a good time.
I think that's all that needs to be said.
Yeah. Well, great. Let us know if you've ever been there, if you plan on visiting in the future, and if you saw condors, if you're there too. Thanks for watching this episode of the Badgerland Birding Podcast.